Lobham moham tyaktvatmanam pashyati soham atmajnana vihina mudha te pachante naraka nigudha. Kamam krodham lobham moham tyaktvatmanam pashyati soham atmajnana vihina mudha te pachante naraka nigudha. The verse is titled as Transcending Desire, Anger, and Greed. The verse says, leaving aside, so leaving desire, anger, greed, and delusion, one sees the self. Soham, saha, aham, saha is he, aham is I. You will proclaim, he am I am that. Fools who lack self-knowledge, atmajnana vihina mudha, vihinaha, without atmajnana. Most of us fall into that category. Fools who lack that self-knowledge are tortured as captives in hell. Te pachante. Pachante means tortured. Narakani gudaha. We're all captives in hell. We're all relatively experiencing captives in hell. So transcend desire, anger, and greed. Everybody's lives are driven with this propelling factor. The propelling factor everybody seems to be riding on are the desires. And having driven on the desires, one invariably is subjected through the various helpless modifications which arise from a desire. So it is not wrong to say that desire is the root of all emotions. So all emotions arise from the undercurrent of desire. So it is imperative, if you want to get to the self, if you want to forget even the self, if you want to have a peace of your mind, you want to have experience that sense of mental equanimity, that state of sattva we keep talking, you want to experience that, you need to transcend the desire and the emotions that arise out of it. And if you fail to do so, you would miss the self. Obviously, you don't have the attunement to the reality. Self is out of focus, gets shrouded. It's like the sun getting covered on a cloudy day or a misty day. The sun is out there, but you don't see the sun. It's covered with clouds and mist. Similarly, the Atman is there, radiant, shining from within, but you don't have an iota, you don't have a clue as to what that self is. You don't experience the bliss of the self. You don't understand, you don't enjoy the radiance from within because of the mist and maze of these desires and the emotions that circle and manifest out of these desires. So if we have heard of it, we have learned of it, we have understood it, but the sad reality is we are all still subjected to it, aren't we? We know it all. There's nothing that we do not know. But the fact that these truths keep repeated, keep appearing here or there again and again with an intention of injecting what is known as forced reflection or manana. You're forced to remind, you're forced to think, you're forced to reconsider, you're forced to ponder these ideas so that you will, when a guru repeats something, the only intention is that you should take that seriously. So when these texts keep repeating the ideas here and there, it's important that you take note and you work on it. So even though it seems fundamental, but it's important to know that desire is the root, and from desire arises, if the desire is the root, from there comes the various branches. If you were to think that desire is the trunk, and from the trunk of the tree comes the various branches. So when you have a desire, and desire is nothing but a thought current that is flowing from you to any specific object or being in the world. It's a thought current. And that thought current could be strong, could be weak, but it's the intensity of the thought current determines the strength of the desire. So you have many desires, multifold desires, and you know that each desire vary in strength. And why do they vary in strength is because you have neglected certain desires, you have fed certain desires. Since you have fed them in the past, some of them are very strong, some of them have not been fed, they're emaciated, they're weak, but they still hold on to you because you have not given them up. There could be some lingering desire, isn't it? There could be still a certain fascination, a certain liking, a certain wanting to do certain things. You have not understood the futility in it and risen above them. So you still hold on to them. In fact, they still hold on to you. And you also hold on to them. So there's a love between you and certain fascinations. There's nothing that you need, but you still say, I want to go shopping. There's so many things you can do without. You still say, I want to go and buy. For what? Chuma. I'm doing nothing, no? Nothing I'm doing. Why don't we go shopping? And then do what? Time pass. And do what? I don't know what. Simply accumulate things. Accumulate things which I don't know. If a necessity, you can spend rest of your life in the store. But is it a necessity? Desire, desire, desire. So when these thought currents, when these desires are there are two possibilities. Simple logic. When you entertain a desire, your desire can either be met, the desire can either be satisfied, can be fulfilled, or a desire could be dissatisfied. It may not be fulfilled. So when the desire is met, there are certain modifications of emotions. When the desire is not met, there are certain series of modifications of emotions. All right. Now, when the desire is not met, as he says, the text gives an idea. So the text uses anger and greed, and third, delusion. So anger and greed are giving you two line of thoughts to expand further. So anger is an emotion when your desires are interrupted. When a desire is not met, you develop anger, isn't it? You may not like a person's behavior. Yeah, that fellow is too egoistic, or that fellow is too nachu, or you can say that fellow is too ill-organized, or you may not like certain things. You may not be appreciative of certain things. What is that? Is it not a non-acceptance of certain things? Isn't that a mild irritation or an anger? It is or it isn't. So anger is a modification of desire when desire is not met. And desire is nothing but wanting, expecting the world to fit into your mental bracket. And there we pay the price of igniting the emotions. So anger is one such emotion when desire is not met. And to expand further on the anger, you need to fall back on the second chapter, 62nd and the 63rd verse of chapter 2, which gives us the famous ladder of fall. The ladder of fall talks about how a mere thought develops an attachment, and attachment develops desire, and desire becomes anger. And when anger mounts, there is what happens? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. There's a delusion. And in that delusion, there's a loss of memory. And in that loss of memory, there's a loss of intellect. And when there's a loss of intellect, he says there's total destruction. Now, that's the ladder of fall. I remember we have discussed it in some context in this class itself. So you please fall back to that reference for further clarification. Now, all you need to note is after anger, there is the presence of delusion. You get deluded. Moha. All right. Now, when your desire is also fulfilled, there are a series of modifications. One such modification, he says, is lobha. Lobha is greed. So greed is a simple, innocuous wanting for more. It's like a child gets a helping of an ice cream, and even before it satisfies, eats what it's got in the plate, it says, "Daddy, I want some more." Hey, first eat what is there in the plate. You have to educate the child from that very young age that you are being greedy. It's not how much is there or not there. You are thinking of more even before you finish what's in the plate. Greed, greed, greed. You know, how much you serve when you go to these functions and parties. Please do not use the chat box if it is not required. Everybody gets distracted, including me. Do not use it. All right. I'm getting angry now, you know. If you one more post, moha, one more post, smritir brahmshad, buddhinasha, buddhinashat, I'll switch off the computer. This is the direct, what do you call that, Sriniji? You have a teacher who not only gives you theory, but practical also will show you. You can't get a better teacher than this. Huh? Agree, Sriniji?
Good morning, Guruji. Yes,
Yes.
I would agree. You're honest with the thoughts. That's good.
Very, very upright. I don't want to be. In fact, before the class starting, also my anger was mounting. You know, I was telling Harishji to do it. He was not doing certain things. So I was very, very angry with Harishji. After the class, I'm going to vent my anger at him. I was telling him so many messages, don't do it, stop doing it. He was listening, not listening to me at all. So if you find a little drop in efficiency or certain content today is because of this content of this verse. I'm a victim of this message here. So every desire can metamorphose into Hariji, every desire can metamorphose into
desire leads to attachment.
I'm not talking of attachment, my dear. What are we talking about here?
Your desire modifies into anger, into all sorts of negative when it is not fulfilled.
It's a sign of no concentration. Very, very sorry, Harishi. Desire modifies into, we are talking about greed, lobha. And every desire you have can have a modification into greed. Means every desire can lead you to want more, isn't it? So what is there in each desire? There is an insatiable element in each desire. You got to watch that out. So that desire drags you out into the world and leaves you dissatisfied. It makes you feel that happiness isn't something you do not have. That is the beauty of the desire. The beauty of desire is makes you believe happiness isn't something you do not have. It draws you outward. That in itself is the first sin we have committed by resorting to desire. Because you have walked out of the haven within into the world out there, thinking happiness isn't something outside and not inside. That's the first sinful act one would do by resorting and surrendering to the desire. And then once you have committed one sin, you'll have to do a series of sins to sort of justify the first sin you have committed. It's inevitable. It's like one slip and you just carried away. Yes, Sriniji.
So I have a question. So I'm giving you a parallel, let's say sports. I mean, today was a historic day when Djokovic got his 20th title in Wimbledon, right? So he has a desire to win the cup. And if he didn't have the desire, he will not excel. And you can take lines like this. I'm just using Djokovic as an example. But in sports, you really need you can call it a passion to the sport. You can call it a desire. But I want a desire to win. How do you explain that? I mean, yeah, we had a golf tournament for seniors in the last 2 days. I had a desire that I will come, and I was delusional by the end of the second day, because I like
that part.
I know, I did.
Good. So, there's something in common here. Yes.
So I'm just trying to say, I mean, there's a wheat from the chaff here, right? People who are really good get focused more because there's a real desire to win. And so I see a positive side of desire, saying I get more focused and I want to win that drives me to excel more, and I go and get it. When I don't win is when I get delusional, and then I start blaming everything and all and sundry versus yourself.
See, even when the desire is met, there is no guarantee that you'll have your sanity with you, isn't it? Not just when you don't get your desire fulfilled. As the verse is titled, going back to the title, he says transcending desire, anger, greed. And then the verse further says, both anger and greed both lead you to delusion. Even though the ladder of fall, we say anger leads to delusion. When you fall a prey to even fulfilling a desire and having got desire fulfilled, when you are in that success, giddy of success of power, name, reputation, what do you get? Don't you feel a sense of moha? You think you're in the ninth cloud, the 10th heaven, and you think you are everything, and you think everything is in your fingertips, you are the master. That kind of a illusory feeling you develop, don't you? So I wouldn't say it is only delusion because of lack of fulfilling a desire interrupted. In fact, every modification of emotion, as the verse says, is hell. In fact, we are going to the further extent saying desire itself is hell. So desire, resorting to a desire, and being subjected to the various emotions arising out of desire is nothing short of hell, which is different to having a desire which is beyond your limited self. When you have a desire for something larger than your own selfish personal agenda, those actions are called unselfish. Those actions are called actions which are driven towards an ideal or a goal or a purpose. And when your actions are driven with a purpose to satisfy a larger interest, then the stigma of selfishness and the modifications arising of the selfish desires disappear, because you're more dispassionate. You have the passion, but you're operating with a dispassionate passion. You're operating with a disinterested interest. You're interested in fulfilling the objective, but not gratifying your own personal self. I always make it a point, and I did yesterday, just to listen to the players' interviews. There's a short, brief interview after the thing. And one of the things they were actually saying, Sriniji, I would kindly request you to refrain having any beverages during the class, please. Okay. If you don't, then you will experience the ladder of fall of the latest stage of ladder of fall. Then it will be directed only to the source of the ladder, which is Srini Kumar. Unless you want a practical thing, please carry on. I don't mind. If you want the message to be loud and clear, no problem. It is a little distracting if you don't mind, please. Okay. They were saying Djokovic was given a prize money of £1.5 million. That is one of the perks they get for having won the championship. But is the prize money is what Djokovic is after? For a man of that caliber, you think he's after behind making another couple of $1 million for himself? These guys have made so much money, another million or two of you will not make a difference to them. But what they're after is much higher. It's not their own personal thing. It's not that if there was this personal anxiety of carving my name onto that, trophy. I want my name onto that that board of honor, where they have their names printed. If it's anything personal or selfish, it spoils it all. So if they are most likely, in fact, if you heard Djokovic in the interview, he was very, very humble. You know that? He was so humble to the core. He said, I have great respect for those two other names. He took Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. He said, I consider them, short of saying, I consider them as my gurus. And he has leveled the maximum, the number of Grand Slams is won. So in between three of them, each has won 20 Grand Slams. It's a unbelievable feat they have achieved. And he says, they have taught me after 2011 to raise my bar. After hitting the top 10, I have learned so much from them. And yet he's in par with them. So look at the attitude he brings in. There is no arrogance, there's no ahankar. He doesn't bring his personal self. He's glorifying someone who he considers them as their gurus, and he's trying to emulate them. So there is no, that ahankar, that ego, that selfishness isn't there at all. So the fair chance is he's just playing to raise the bar of the game. Yeah. So as long as but if you had watched the match, there was hardly a moment. I did not get to see the whole match, please, but I saw hardly a moment where he got emotional. Did you see him losing his temper or emotions even when he lost the first set? Did he lose his emotion? Did you see him breaking a racket, or throwing, or getting into a tantrum, or arguing with the umpire, or getting disappointed with the linesman? Things may not gone his way, but he had his composure. He had his emotions at bay. He just was able to put aside all that was happening, just play the sport, play the point, play the set, play the game, be in the moment. See, what I'm trying to say is, you can only put all these emotions at bay when you rise above the desire, because emotions emanate from the desire. If I'm operating on the desire, I will have no choice but to be subjected to the emotions which arise from the desire. So either I'm driven on desire or I'm driven on an ideal. These are two different driving forces which drive one into action. When you are driven on desire and personal satisfaction, it is always selfish. When you're driven on an ideal, a purpose, it is unselfish. It is sattvic action vis-a-vis rajasic action. You must see the difference, even though you may use the word desire to motivate, but what it means is, it's an ideal or a purpose. When you have a larger purpose, a cause beyond yourself, you will automatically not be subject to the desire and the modifications of desires. As I said, desire can either be fulfilled or unfulfilled. So all of these modifications you'll not be subjected to. It's like there are two different routes I take. I take this route, it has a certain pathway. And if I take that route, I'll be certain I'll be having such scenic view, but it will be a rough terrain. But if I go another route, it's an asphalted road, it's a beautiful highway, but it's not that scenic. The choice is yours, what route you take. Don't be carried away by the examples. As I think the example, I have a better example, doesn't matter. I'm saying you have two choices. You take the route of desire, you have to experience emotions. You take the route of working for a cause beyond the desire, you will be freed from these emotions. So what you experience day in and day out, you're all subjected to these emotions, little or more. To that extent, there is a desire that is bothering you, that you're operating on. Hmm. So one is driven on the mind, another thing is driven on the intellect. And it's the intellect that can envision a goal or a cause. It's very unnatural that the mind will flow to the higher. It's very unnatural and very rare. If there is a desire, you're bound to experience these emotions. You can't escape them. You can't say, oh, I am extremely selfish and self-centered, but I don't experience all this at all. To that extent, you're not selfish and self-centered. To that extent, you're operating on the intellect. Because the moment where there's intellect, there's no room for emotions. You'll understand that, isn't it? Sriniji, where there is emotion, there is no intellect. Negative emotions, I'm saying. But then what we independently talk is integration of your head and heart. That is an ideal action. That is different to what I'm saying here. So all these emotions of, he only talks about greed, but there are further modifications. When your desire is met, you develop an envy towards people who are better than you. You're envious. You become arrogant towards people who are less fortunate than you. You experience insecurity when you have acquired the world. There is bhaya, and then there is obviously this moha, delusion. So all these emotions are only, what do these emotions do to you, Sriniji? I'm still with you because I just want to ensure you got the message, whether you're able to follow what is said here. So all these emotions, what do they do to you?
Well, it's like it's a vicious circle. It gets you to get trapped more and more and in these desires. And so you want, the desires make you, the want goes even deeper, and therefore you get either frustrated or you continue to get greedy.
So any of these emotions, including a desire, what does it create for you?
The word used here is delusion. I mean, you're never satisfied in one sense, but
Sriniji, the things, the various emotions, kama is desire, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, bhaya, the 7 things often referred to is kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, bhaya. Now these are the 7 situations or the experiences, the emotions you get into, including desire. Now, if you plant yourself in any of these emotions, what do you experience is the question.
you get deeper into one of those emotions.
But what is the experience you have? All right, let me ask RPG. What do you experience, RPG? Any of these emotions, including desire?
It's a void you experience a void or a lack of fulfillment. So if you don't have something, depending on the circumstance, you might have the desire, you might have fear, you might have, but something is not being fulfilled as you see the world.
We are not talking of a void here. What is the context of the verse, please? If I can draw you to the context.
So the context, if you leave all of these things behind, then the self is revealed. So if you somehow shed your life of desire, anger, greed, and ultimately delusion, then what unfolds is the self.
Even before you get to the self, what do you experience?
Peace of mind, happiness.
Right. So, correct. So any of these emotions, the 7 we mentioned, is only going to create a hell. That is what the verse says, Narakane Godaha. It is hell on earth for you if you do not transcend the desire and these emotions he's mentioned. So the hell is nothing but a state of your mind you have created out of your own selfish, egoistic approach to life. If you relate the world with trying to fulfill and satisfy and gratify your own personal, selfish agenda, a hidden agenda if you have, it is only going to lead you into these emotions, you like it or not. So either there is bhaya, there's insecurity in your life, it is your selfishness. If you're disappointed at life, it's your own selfishness. If you feel you want more, it's your own selfishness. If you feel all the time comparing yourself and feel superior or inferior to someone, it is your own selfish perspective to the world. All of this only causes mental agony. There is no comfort in any of these emotions. Am I right, Arpitji?
Yes.
And during the course of the day, do you know what are the emotions, or how many of these emotions visit you, and how many times do they visit you in the course of your work and interaction with the world?
Countless.
Sorry?
Countless times. You can't enumerate them.
It's very, very shocking, isn't it? Do you mean to say that I'm subjecting myself into these, I'm subjecting my mind into these unhealthy emotions and paying a price of a hell every walk of my way, every experience I'm getting into? If I'm subject to these emotions, it is a very unhealthy state. Now, is it possible to go through this without being subject to these emotions, without developing anger? Is it not possible to succeed without having greed? Is it not possible where you develop a sense of happiness and joy for your teammates? Is it not possible that you don't feel envious at others' success? You don't feel superior to others and feel arrogant to them? Is it possible? Yes or no, RPG?
Yes.
Yes, isn't it? So it is very much possible that you don't subject yourself into these emotions. And how is it possible? Is not acting on the desire. You don't act on them. You don't operate on the mind. What do you operate on? You enter the field of your activity. Entering the field of activity is known as swadharma. You do what your dharma is. You do what your field of activity is. Thereafter, you don't operate on the mind. You operate on your intellect. You operate on your duties. You operate what your obligations are. You inject a higher purpose. Inject that spirit of sacrifice, a spirit of service. Familiar words, but it's truly transformational. Either you take this route or you take that route. And if you take the route of working for a larger cause, putting a cause above your little ego, you will not experience the desire and the modification of emotions. You will not. And if you are subjected to it, it is your own selfishness and your ego that is coming and spoiling it. It's creating a hell for your life. It is your own ego. And you can't fool yourself, please. These are the laws and facts of life. Yes, RPG.
So the way you've stated it this evening, and Hari Om Guruji,
Yes.
I just want to make sure it's almost as if I'm interpreting it in the right way, that purpose and ideal stand apart from desire. So even as you're in the moment, I hate to use the word, but you're pursuing, or you're focused on your purpose, on your ideal, it's not really a desire. It's a state, or it's an end, or but it's not a desire to meet that purpose, right? Because then it seems like that could become clouded. Oh, I didn't make it, or they made it before I did, or whatever. I just want to make sure I'm understanding, that purpose and ideal are different from desire, even though you may, kind of going back to Sriniji's point, you may be pursuing that purpose or ideal, but it's not something you're doing it for the sake of doing it. I hope, I'm sorry if I'm not being clear. I'm just trying to understand. The way you stated it tonight is different than I've heard it in the past. So I just want to clarify.
See, I think it's the same thing I'm saying. I don't think I've said anything different. Maybe it's appearing differently, but it's the same thing. See, the field of activity I am in, or you are in, or you all are in, that doesn't change, isn't it? That's your basic nature. The basic nature is the field of activity. Either I'm a sportsman, or a singer, or a professional, or a philosopher, is based on my dharma, my nature, which is my vasanas, which we call as svadharma. Am I right? So we don't go about changing the field of our activity, but it's how you operate in the field that needs to be attended to. So if I am operating in this field of philosophy, as a philosopher, if I am trying to satisfy my own personal ego, if there's a selfish agenda in this action, I'm only saying it is going to bring a great level of anxiety, restlessness, disappointment, dissatisfaction, anger, and so on. But if I get into the field, which is inevitable, I have to do this whether I like it or not. I'll have to do it because it's my dharma. But if I bring in a high element of how I can serve, bring in that spirit of sacrifice into my action, bring in an element of accommodating a higher purpose. So what is the purpose I'm working for? It is to spread this truth to one and all. There'll obviously be challenges, irrespective of that. But am I using this path to glorify and gratify myself, or am I using this path to serve the objective of serving this knowledge to one and all? So if I have to serve that, I would need a vehicle, I would need the resources, I would need a banner, I would need a team, I would need a team which has a coherence in them. All of that is understood. But you have to create that. It's not that it all falls from heaven and then suddenly say, there you go. No, you have to build it. It is a lot of struggle, it's a lot of effort. But since there is nothing personal in it, all of these emotions don't come and bother you. You will find a great sense of satisfaction because you are trying to fulfill a larger purpose, which you have conceived a cause beyond your own personal glorification and gratification. So what have you identified? Identified with an unselfish purpose. You could be running an organization, RPG. You could be going there day in and day out. Sorry to say this, but just an example. You could be going there just to make millions for yourself. Or you can go there and say, I have 100 employees with me, which multiply them with 3-4 people in a family. I have 400-500 people who have to be provided for. And I must ensure, I must let this organization grow and swell so that these 400-500 people are provided for. It's my obligation. So you're thinking of 100 families to provide for, not just making millions for yourself. So what is it that drives you to your work, to your chair, to your office, to your cabin, to meet people? Is the spirit that I must get that job, I must get a better contract so that I'm able to satisfy. I don't want any of my staff to go jobless and suffer the consequences. So what drives you is to take care of those 100 families, not your millions. Is there a personal desire in it? Or is there a larger cause at every walk of the way? So every time you take up that action, you identify with a larger cause. So every time there is this effort taken is to serve this cause to as many people. Whatever you do, it must resonate with a larger interest, not your own personal, selfish glorification and gratification. Even if it means it does not glorify or gratify you, are you able to take that extra step to serve the cause and for a purpose you believe in? That is an antidote to the desire and the emotions that arise. The emotions are an inevitable effect of the desire, but the only antidote to that is you must conceive a cause beyond yourself. Now, we are all in this knowledge. One common factor which binds of all of us is the Sanatana Dharma. Are you inspired to serve this cause? Does this cause inspire you? It certainly inspires me. I'm driven to serve this cause. Does it inspire you? You all? What can you sacrifice to serve this cause? I'm not talking of this banner, the Wisdom Foundation. It doesn't matter. You can serve any banner. But does this knowledge needs to be served? Every human being must be given this knowledge. Everybody should be enriched with these higher values of life. What a world it would be if everybody out there is endowed with this wisdom. What a world it would be, RPG, isn't it? If everybody has a little bit wisdom, it's impossible to transform everyone. But if every child that comes out of an education institution has this wisdom, the walk of life, how to lead their life in a particular way with this higher intellect, this wisdom in them. Can you envision that cause and say, I would like to do what I can to serve this cause? Oh, I'm doing my part. It's not just doing a part. What extent can you go? What extent can you sacrifice your actions towards its cause? So your actions grow in stature based on how lofty your ideal is. You can just be content by coming and taking this knowledge, or you can be restless and say, what can I do to serve this knowledge? Restless. If I don't continue to serve, it's like putting me in a cage. Putting a bird in a cage. The bird is meant to explore the skies, the open skies, and you cage it. Would you feel that sense of suffocation if you don't envision a cause and work towards it? Exactly, I feel that way. Does that sense of suffocation come into you all? I'm only talking on a common platform because we all here. One platform that unites us is this knowledge. Does this knowledge inspire you? Ask yourself, what have I done to serve this cause? What can I do to serve this cause? So the only checkmate to the desire is an ideal. So only way out of selfishness is an unselfish path. And unselfishness is measured with the ideal you can identify with. Visa, which is an example, I said, making millions for yourself or to provide for the 100 families who are with me. You can just say, oh, the business scenario is very bad. The pandemic has caused a great loss to everybody. So if they lose their job, they lose a job. That's it. But I continue to get that kind of profits and shares and perks and all that as a chairman or a founder or a director I enjoy. But 50 families, 50 fellows lose their job, that means X number of families will suffer. I don't care. It's the situation. What can I help? The organization may say, would you ever think of cutting your perks and say, I can go without salary for 6 months. I've made enough to ensure that my 50 other people who might lose their job will not lose their job. Arbiji, that is a cause. Would you do that? 6 months I will not take. 1 year I will not take because I will not be on the streets. I have made enough, but I need to provide for those 50 families, ensure the 100 families will be provided for. Even the smallest, that's perhaps the smallest ideal you can ever conceive. That's the lowest ideal. For an organization, for people who have given so much to you, to what length can you go to take care of them? To what length? That's a simple acid test to see whether you're actually working for your own gratification and glorification, or is there a cause you believe and you can go to that length to serve them? And how do you know whether you are doing so or not? Whether these emotions rise in your bosom or not? If they do not, bless yourself. You're blessed because you're not having that, to that extent, you're not selfish and self-centered. But if they are, stand up and take note and remove the weeds of your desires, because they only metamorphose into these emotions that destroy the beauty of your garden. They destroy it. And every emotion is nothing short of hell. That is what the verse is saying. Every emotion is hell. None of these emotions comfort you. Ramji? Do you agree with me, sir?
Namaste, Namaste Guruji. Yes, definitely.
Sure,
I think there are many aspects which we have to, let's say, consider or overcome before we hit that path. And that is where life gives you so many temptations that you fall for them and don't hit that path early enough. I remember when we came out of our institute, IIM Ahmedabad, among all of us, one fellow said, I don't want to get a corporate job. And he just walked across the road. There is a blind men's association, blind people's association. It is called BPA. He just joined them as at the lowest level. And he's there for the last 40 years. He is now heading that institution. And so you can imagine what calling he had and what work he has done in these 40 years. He is at a completely different level than he earned whatever money they pay, but that is enough for him to survive. But so similarly, I think you get a calling And that calling must come out of that commitment to a higher purpose. And that commitment, I think 99% people won't have, but that is where the difficulty is. But even in a competitive one, like we were talking about yesterday's match, if you see even both semifinals and finals, in both the matches, the guy was so much in control of his emotions that, and both the opponents were so much emotional, much more emotional than.
Correct.
The use of intellect by Djokovic was very evident throughout. And I think that is what makes you actually achieve higher results. So that is, I think these are definitely there for us to see all around us.
Very true. It's there. You must have the eyes to see.
Yeah.
It's Vedanta written all over every. In fact, Ramatirtha says Vedanta is flowing in the waters. It's written on the leaves. It is there in the brooks. It's there everywhere. It's there for you to see it. You know, and I can relate to what you have said. Someone walking across. You know. So it's not, but it is the very small percentage of people who identify with a cause. But it is, if I'm able to, in what we are saying is to inject that principle in the field that you're operating in. It's not that I must give up a job. I'm not suggesting that you should give up your work and start serving Wisdom Foundation. Please don't. I'll have another headache to deal with, which I don't know how to deal with it. RPG, please don't do that. Please don't shift your swadharma. You know, maybe if Sriniji and RPG decide to come, I will decide to pick up another job. I will switch my roles. There are two people difficult to handle. One person, maybe I can manage Ramji, isn't it? Yes, RPG.
You don't have a spot for us? We'll come and stay with you. You don't have a spot for us?
I'm making that. We are making that facility. So there is.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yeah, no problem. There's certainly that facility. Yeah. Our heart is too big. We can accommodate all of you.
Excellent.
Right. So how you could inject that spirit. So we often spoke about identifying with a larger cause. Apart from that, what it does is it relieves you, alienates you from all these self-inflicted emotions which create a hellish world for yourself. The self-created. This is all one's own emotions. But imagine if somebody has this ability to operate on the intellect, identify a cause beyond your own personal hidden agenda, and lead a path where your actions are glorious. It resonates so much peace and harmony within. It comforts and accommodates everybody's interest along the way. I tell you, it's a glorious life if you can live a life like that. It's not that I must survive only at the cost of others. I can survive, I can live, I can prosper and ensure I take everybody along with me in that path to evolution, in that route to prosperity and peace. I'm actually sharing my peace and prosperity with everybody around me. And it doesn't make me any poorer. The interesting thing is, you are not at loss. In fact, you are all to gain. The way to gain anything in life is to lose it. You want to gain anything in life, you give it away, you will get 10-fold, 20-fold, 100 times more you get it. So you will be enriched in every walk of the way. You want love from people, you want sympathy, you want empathy, you want identification for people, you first show that. If you have empathy to your people, they will stand by you. Isn't it? In fact, I'm reminded, not like rather, I'm reminded of, I like also that context. Harishji was once sharing me of Tata. Harishi, you can share that experience briefly, please, of he wanting to leave an organization, and then you said every employee tendered their resignation because Tata, who is no more with us, can you share, Ji, please?
Yes, Guruji. When he decided to, at one stage, to leave an organization where he had served for many, many years and built up that organization from scratch and moved to set up another organization. He was intending to move to set up another organization for another friend of his who wanted his help to set up this organization, which was going to become a pioneer in that particular field in India. And when he put in his papers, somehow people got to know, and the entire company, from the top to the bottom, without anybody saying it, the entire workforce submitted their resignations, saying that if he is not there, we all want to leave. And then he had to actually go and explain things to them. And then he did continue as an advisor on the board of the company. But that showed the level to which they had identified with him. The fact that he worked selflessly, I mean, without a selfish motive.
As unselfish, culminating into selflessness. So it is, and this is the context I remember he shared a long while ago with me, and I just flashed back, you know. So to bring, these are the elements which are antidote to the desire and all these selfish emotions which come, and actually it's like a sleeping on a bed of thorns. No movement is comforting to you. Remember this example, perhaps it will drive a stronger message than ever intended. To embrace and engender these emotions is like to sleep on a bed of thorns, and not a moment is comforting you. And the only way out is to, we say the use of intellect. Use of intellect is not to curb them. The use of intellect is to uproot them from the very root, so they don't grow at all, which is to work for a cause beyond yourself. Start with what you can identify with. In fact, this was one of the exercises we did in the workshop last month when we actually connected with these corporate heads who were there over the 1.5 a day, and actually asked them, what is the ideal that you can identify with? As leaders, what tone are you pitching in for the entire team as to what is that cause you are? It's not just having banners on your corporate walls, it's not in your offices and signages, but it's actually, as a leader, can you set the tone for the entire team? What is the ideal that you identify with? So that is the part that relieves you from the being tortured as captives in hell. So please, we need to be released. Vijayaraghavanji, correct? We don't want to be captives, we want to be released.
I was thinking about the dilemmas faced in working life or corporate life, especially when you orient your goals entirely with the organization. And most of the time, it is the perfect thing to do. But every now and then, you have a certain clash about what you would like to do and what the organization's, whatever the goals entitles or make you do. Especially if it's at variance with a larger group, which is society. Now that when it clashes with your own absolute, value system. I mean, I don't have any other word to describe it. So at that time, if you keep quiet and comply, you are serving the immediate larger cause. That is the organizational requirement. However, you are not certainly not serving the much larger cause. And it suits us to, sorry, it suits us to continue and serve the company's cause and then justify to ourselves, because I'm not doing it, I'm doing it for the company. And there are countless examples. I won't like to go into those details examples. So this is where all the time it becomes, it's hell either which way. Both ways you get into a serious, what do you call that? Conscience pricking all the time. So I think ultimately, my personal take, Guruji, you can guide me, is that ultimately you listen to what your conscience says and just do it and forget about the, whatever relationship or whatever it is.
So what are you suggesting here?
So my real question is this, under these circumstances, if you don't have a certain commitment or a passion, you find that you're not able to go along with what the larger cause is requiring. And if you're totally objective or rational about it, then sometimes your own conscience seems to be getting, your own mind seems to be getting suppressed, a value system seems to be getting suppressed. I mean, I've seen enough number of people who are saying, this is required by the organization, I will do it. True, perhaps. There it's more intellect, possibly wrongly guiding intellect than the mind. What does one do under these circumstances? How do we, interpret this? I'm unable to do that.
Could you just sum up your question, simple terms?
If when you identify with a immediate larger cause, which is at variance with the still further larger cause, going along with the immediate larger cause, in this case, an organization, could be actually selfish. Wanting to, retain your job, for instance. At that time, do we fall back on conscience or still look at the larger cause only?
Right. Now, I hope you all have got the question. I asked Vijayji to repeat. I didn't want to get him wrong in the question. See, what would you have done when it was just for working for your own personal benefit vis-a-vis the organization? Have you not sacrificed your selfish motive and embraced the organization's interest? You have sacrificed the lower for the higher. You have to evolve and continue to evolve. If you stagnate, your conscience will not permit. When you know there is not just satisfying or gratifying the immediate ideal, which is the company, which is going against the grain of the larger interest of the society or the larger interest of the very profession itself. As leaders of the industry, we are expected to set benchmarks for others to emulate. But if I, as a leader in the industry, resorts to certain practices which is going to set a wrong tempo for everybody in the market out there, and if that doesn't resonate with you, you cannot be a silent witness to say it and say, no, what can I do? It's a company's thing. But then you are accepting something which is against your conscience. So you are trying to just protect your job as a director or a managing director because you say, I am answered to the board is drawing the ship in a different direction. I will go to a different destination because I'm just a passenger in the boat. Now, you can always disembark and say, no, this is not the destination I choose to go. because you want to uphold the principle of a larger thing. And you will have the whole world is ready to embrace because you are thinking of a much larger cause. There is no insecurity of yourself. If you feel, oh, will I get a job at this juncture of my life? What will happen to my commitments? Okay, never mind. I'll have to be comfortable in the fact that I've served this organization so long and do good with what rewards and perks and accolades are getting, and not venture into the larger picture of believing in a larger cause. I will be uncomfortable. I will be committing a sin because I have grown beyond the limited interest of the organization. I've able to embrace the larger, much larger interest. So that larger interest, the organization's interest gets dwarfed, and which the little organization I'm in doesn't align to the larger cause. Therefore, I need to take that step of walking out of the university into that larger picture of arena of life and say, I want to learn not from just from a university. I want to learn from this experience of life as such. The life really is a teacher for me, not just from a kindergarten to a school to a college or university. I want to take life as a lesson of life, to learn from it. So you cannot confront your conscience. That's a fundamental thumb rule, sir. Never ever confront your conscience. That is not going to comfort you. It is as sinful, as hellish as any of these emotions we're talking. But do I have that belief, as Ramji said, he walked across that I am institute and identified with the cause, something that triggered in that person. I'm not suggesting we all should do that. I'm saying that is not what is being suggested, is to identify with a cause in the field of your work, is not shifting your field of activity. But not many have that strength and conviction. You know, even not to quote in entirety, because there will be perspectives and objections to certain aspects. M.K. Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, he was practicing law in South Africa. He had a beautiful career ahead of him. He had everything going his way. But something triggered in him, I want to get freedom for my nation. He left the comforts of that life wearing a three-piece suit, and he put a cloth over his body and he wanted to fight for the country. How many would have that capacity to even think that way? Am I making sense, Vijayji?
Yes, Guruji. Okay, I do believe in that, but the present day corporate life, or I shouldn't use the word, I shouldn't sound dogmatic, the fundamental capitalist economy and the corporate life, I think presents this constantly to people, this dilemma, particularly when the market, that is the stock market, decides the courses of actions of companies. So they are constantly faced with this, which objective is more important. And invariably I find, I mean, maybe I sound like an old man, which I am, is that the immediate companies, the company develops a certain personality and it has a certain ambition, and then they continue. And somewhere along the line, things become fuzzy. So I thought what you were saying is most topical, but how to get a company's conscience, I don't know.
See, company is built on individuals. Its company is not built on walls and bricks. It's built on individuals and the principles these leaders bring together and set the tone, because it's a leader that sets the tone for the organization. So if a leader as you are in your organization, if you can influence the wisdom of others, if you can influence the thought pattern of others to encompass a larger good. But if one chooses a route which against your conscience, if I am in that position, I would not toe to it. I would say thank you very much for the opportunity. It's not that I can't carry on life without it. Either I kill my conscience and continue, or I uphold my conscience and create a path. You see, but it is impossible to find a perfect world out there who fits into everything that you think. So within yourself, you should be able to identify with a cause within yourself. You cannot influence and be the custodians of others' conscience. You cannot. I cannot. So I can't sit in judgment and say what you're doing is wrong. That is his perspectives. Who am I to decide? But as long as it comforts me, you know, if I'm working for the industry, not the organization, in the process, the organization get the name, can make millions, can make its profits, but I'm not working just for my organization banner. Like, I'm not working for the foundation of wisdom, foundation banner. I'm working to serve this knowledge to one and all. I do need a banner. I need a vehicle. I need a roof over my head. I need a place. I need a facility to serve. So you can identify with it. But am I only trying to promote the good of the foundation? No. I'm trying to promote the good of everybody out there, to serve this cause. This Sanatana Dharma is too grand just not to be confined to the walls of this little organization, this nascent organization. No, it is too grand. If I can, so I can choose to work for an industry, not just a banner. The choice is always with the individual, sir. Very good clarification, Vijayji. I hope we all have the strength and conviction in us to uphold the conscience all the way. Never feel insecure at any point. Never ever. That's the crux. The crux is don't feel insecure of moving out of your cocoon. Never feel that. And you gain rather the strength and motivation in the cause you believe in. As Shakespeare says, there is a divinity that shapes our ends, he says. And there is that unfallible faith in the divinity that drives me. I'm talking about my own personal inspiration. What drives me is that faith that there is this providence that will provide and take care. Never ever do I experience this. The word insecurity doesn't exist in my dictionary. In my life, never existed. And it's not what is there that's going to provide you. What gives me security is that faith in that providence or divinity. If I can do that, anybody can do, because I'm nothing extraordinary. I'm saying it's incorporating the simple principles which these Shastras are talking about. So any one of us can do that, sir, and experience the assurance and the security of the cause, the higher cause. There is no security in being little. I'm sure you agree, sir. There is no security in being small. The only security is by growing big, by becoming unselfish. A couple of them want to comment. I hope we're not running out of time, but Setuji, you wanted to say something, sir?
Hari Om Guruji, I just
Hari Om,
wanted to share. I have been a technocrat entrepreneur. I have been observing, from micro industry, very few become MSME, and from MSME, very few become medium industries, and from medium, very few become large. I have been observing and studying entrepreneurs. I found, although some of them, many were rags to riches and employees turned entrepreneurs, the moment they become again selfish. They start with no money, but later their assets increase, personal assets increase, and their lifestyle increases, but they don't invest on technology, on infrastructure, on the growth of the company, because they feel little insecure and they get deluded. And even I have seen trade union leaders, when they become entrepreneurs, they don't take care of employees, their own employees. So this I have been observing. On the other hand, whoever is the exception, I was also a victim to it because I was living in ignorance. And the same, when I got this knowledge and when the same thing I apply in my foundation, I gain when I lose. So this has been amply demonstrated because I got a victim because I was going by the self-help books of American books. All the time entrepreneurs, they say, take care of only investor, shareholder, stake is the primary thing. Rest all is secondary. And very few companies, again, in America also, there are examples who took care of other stakeholders. They have grown leaps and bounds. So just wanted to share.
No. So I could understand 100% spirit, but 50% of the words I didn't understand, sir. For that, I need to study stakeholders. All these things is not my forte, sir. But I could understand the spirit, everything that you said, you know. And it's a very, very sweet of you. Very nice how you brought it out in a language which I'm sure all of them agree and follow what you said. As I said again earlier, it's there to be seen whether you have the eyes to see it, isn't it? Yes, Harishji, anything to say?
No, Guruji, I think you've said it all. I was wanting to say something, but you've said it all.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ji. Appreciate it. Setuji, yes, lastly, Setuji wants to say something. Yes, sir, please. Sir, please. Yes.
Yeah, Guruji, here I would like to share this, our own GBK Rao, who is here. He is working for a cause beyond himself. He works for environment, he works for this thing, and even when their organization goes ups and downs, he focuses on the cause and invests a lot for the higher cause. This I have been personally observing. So I just like to.
Yes, I can understand. I really appreciate that. I don't think he's there at this moment. Is he there? I don't think he's there, sir. I don't think he's there at this moment. I think he's left the class, but I can appreciate the comments, and it does resonate.